and I need to not tip them off that I'm not one of them, that I'm actually, I've snuck in and I am operating among them. Please do not say any weird words or make any bleepity bleep sounds or let the antennas peek out from my cap or the tail show, whatever it is. Don't let these people know that I'm not one of them, because that's when things get weird. And yet,
the 21st century has presented us with an irregular, but it's happened more than once to me, an irregular opportunity to just have that almost laugh out loud moment. And I can tell you one of them that happened 2 or 3 years ago, and it's Twitter. And I remember sitting there tapping away at some, I don't know, probably British GT news story. Up pops a little alert. Emerson Fittipaldi is following you. Yeah.
It's just one of those crazy things. And so I just come back to, and so maybe I'll just close on this because I don't know, I find it amusing to talk about it. Then you have maybe the fourth angle, which I just realized, and that is, let's see. So going on who I expect to see this weekend at Rennsport, I believe Nick Tandy will be there. I think he's going to be there. I'll be surprised if he isn't, but Nick Tandy will be there. And the first thing when I see Tandy every time is just say something horrifically offensive to him.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's got the face for it.
And, you don't do this in and around other folks, but you just walk up and just say, hey, you bleepity, bleepity, bleep, and just lay into him as hard as you can. And I expect, and I'm disappointed, I will be disappointed if I don't get something equally, or if not more hostile back.
Oh, yeah.
But I mention that because, that it's frickin' Nick. I mean, look, if you don't bust his balls, that's not the way things work.
There's no point in turning up if you don't do that.
But then you step back and realize that, I don't know, I'm sure there are plenty today who idolize him, as they should. Oh my goodness, one of the world's greatest drivers, period. But 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when he is rocking up to the Rennsport reunion 30 or whatever it is, bald, gray-haired, whatever it is, with a cane, I don't know, but when he shows up 20, 30, 40 years from now, looking exactly, playing the part of that aging veteran Porsche driver who is beloved, renowned Le Mans winner and champion of this, and when those decades in the future, Nick Tandy is viewed in that same iconic way as the Vic Elfords, the Elliott Forbes Robinsons, the Hobbs, name some of the other big legends that are in their 60s and 70s. Nick's going to rock up to Rennsport decades in the future, and to just about everybody there, he is going to be, oh my God, that is Nick Tandy. I am in the shadow of greatness. And if I don't walk up and say, you bleepity cockeyed such and such, there'll be something wrong. So that's the other thing. So today's future legends, they'll be revered however they are duly revered in the future, Graham. I just know that these relationships now, you sure as heck don't give them credit for anything. If anything, you try and break them down a little bit, and they do the same to you. Pruett, do they still allow you to write stories? Oh my God, the police haven't intervened yet? I mean, that's what it should be.
You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. I mean, the lack of respect, the lack of... You not see the opportunity? Remember this. When Nick Tandy is in the same room as you, okay, you can always go back to the team bus and take his wallet.
That's a good idea. We're going to rob him blind. So I love it. All right. Well, where shall we head for a couple of questions? I know I
finals,
some prototypey stuff, but why don't you grab a couple you're keen on?
Well, let's do that. Alex Eichmiller says, if Core happens to win the championship in an LMP2 car, do you think that helps or hurts the decision to split the prototype class? Do you think anyone would change their opinion of the decision? Well, that's pertinent, isn't it, MP, from the story that you and I have been working on in the last 24 hours? Because, number one, I think it would be wonderful. I think it would be fantastic for the good men and women of core autosports. I think it might prick the bubble a little bit of a couple of the DPI teams, for that matter. But I think you're going to find that there might be a few more LMP2 cars next year that at the moment people reckon there might be. Had a long chat with a couple of people at Spa-Francorchamps over the weekend, and we know, of course, there's the three remaining teams that look like continuing: PR1 Matterson, the Performance Tech team, and Core. But there is further interest out there, and further interest out there from outside the current realms of P2 level prototype racers within potentially the LMP3 community in the United States and the single-seater community. And watch this space, because I can guarantee you that as soon as that story hits, there will be other journalistic entities that will be going through thinking it could be them, could be them, could be them. And there'll be a peppering of phone calls going up. So I would guess, I'd give it, what do you think, 3 days, MP, before someone comes back with scoop exclusive?
Breaking exclusive scoop.
But the good news is that there is actually the potential here for expansion of the prototype grid in P2. And no matter what is happening, and another excellent story from you today, MP, with the potential for what might happen with ESM moving forward, is if you do get the level of expansion that we think there might be, and we're talking here not 3, but probably 5, possibly as many as 7 near full-time cars in LMP2. My guess is close to 5. But you're getting into a pretty high teens number there in the combined prototype grid, and with potential for the difference in pace between the DPIs and the P2s, you can have these very capable Gibson engine cars, often in the hands of very, very capable drivers. And all of a sudden, for the DPIs, traffic is going to take on a different meaning, and that could be big fun.
Well, we are going to close our big fun with 3 questions stacked up from James Hewitt, Ed Joris, and we will close with Keith Gibson. Let me grab James's to start. He said, is there any idea of where the next set of LMP2 regulations will go? Are the ACO looking to get more chassis manufacturers in because of the errant issues with the Multimatic stock P2 chassis, as in the one without Mazda updates and changes? That, I think, would be more of your world, sir, knowing that, yes, car, whatever the heck it ends up being called, on the P1-ish front, we seem to think we know where that might be headed. Haven't heard much on what the ACO and WEC are thinking on the P2 side. Anything we can share?
Okay, well, a couple of bits and pieces to chuck into the mix here. We know that obviously at the moment there's still the debate around the relative dominance of the Oreca chassis. We know as well that there's still conversations about what might happen to deal with that, whether or not that is a move to liberalise that marketplace, whether or not it means BOPing the dominant chassis. There's going to be some further controversy on that one. However, we're not a million miles away from where the issue of the next phase of licenses, effectively for P2 manufacturers, is going to have to be gripped. It would be fair to say, I think, Oreca, Ligier, Dallara would be a shoe-in unless their marketplace collapses, which doesn't look like being the case. Multimatic is a fair point, but they have that DPI customer, but it's fair to say a 0 customer car counts active at the moment. Beyond that, who else would be directly interested? Well, for sure, Ginetta would be interested if their P1 program can actually get the momentum that I think it deserves. I think they've been very unlucky as a manufacturer in terms of what's happened with the commercial aspects of that program, and equally well, they've already been selected as a P3 manufacturer again, one of the 4 that's been selected there. The other one I think that's worth looking at is Norma. They've come up with a very capable LMP3 chassis. It's a carbon tub, of course. There's a new organisation now in charge of that program, the Decane Engineering side, a very capable organisation, proven ability, by the way, to run a P2 race program. They've been going great guns in their first season in the ELMS with their Orica program. So immediately there, if you were going to stick with those 4 chassis, then you've got a problem on your hands, because you've got the potential for there to be 6 people bidding for potentially 4 licenses. Might there be a spanner in the works with what happens with the next phase of DPI? There might be. That's one to think about. Could there be something grandfathered there for the existing Multimatic chassis? Might well be. Might they go for more than 4? They might. The marketplace is still expanding. I mean, if you imagine at the moment, the Gibson engine is actually a great yardstick for that. Initially, I think the initial production batch for that was 30. These are engines in circulation, sold by the hour, etc. Then they go back in for rebuild, etc. Now 50. In terms of cars that are going to be active in that marketplace, well, the numbers make for a pretty interesting reading. If we accept that maybe it's 5 or 6 in the United States, it's somewhere around 16 to 18, probably closer to 20 in the European Le Mans Series next year. So you're already in the mid-20s. Add in half a dozen or more from the FIWEC, and you're over 30 against an engine marketplace that has 50. They're going to need some more engines if we get beyond that. And that's without, by the way, the chassis that are involved in the DPI marketplace, of which I think there are 10, 12 if you include the 2 Ligier Nissans. There's a lot of chassis out there for such a capable capable platform, and I think that's going to be an interesting challenge. Somebody, I suspect, is going to be disappointed. Who is that going to be? Well, last time the disappointed party was Ginetta. Ginetta did go for it, didn't get it. It's believed that they were edged out by Dallara on the commercial side of things. I think it's going to be an interesting contest this time. What you've got, think it through like this. You have Ligier at the moment with a strong LMP3 marketplace, reasonably strong, but suffering LMP2 marketplace. Orica with an LMP1 product, an LMP2 product where they dominate, and of course have got the contract for all of the powertrains in LMP3. They build all of those Nissan X-Track powertrains. Dallara have an LMP1 product, have an LMP2, do not have an LMP3. Ginetta are rather the odd ones out, because they've got an LMP3 and an LMP1 and nothing in between, and that gives them a problem in terms of customer conversion and a ladder. And then you've got the oddities, Ades in LMP3, Norma in LMP3, and a couple of the minnows in LMP1 that don't have another product in the game. For me, it's probably going to be between the Ginetta and Norma if they go for it. I think Multimatic need to show that they're going to be serious about a customer car if they're going to go for it again.
If there's one thing I'm keen on the Norma, it's one of very few race cars where you don't have to ask what gender it applies to. We know for sure that would be the feminine, not the masculine. All right, let's move to Ed Joris, the penultimate question for this week's episode. It says, are there going to be too many Cadillacs in DPI for its own good next season? Will the new Cadillac teams be behind the 8 ball, since Wayne Taylor Racing and Action Express Racing will have 2 years of setup info that the new teams won't have? Let's start with the last question first. Yes, and of course, that would be the same for anything. If I'm entering something where people have been using the same tool competitively for a couple of years, of course they're going to be ahead of me because they've been doing it longer and have amassed more information. Where, Ed, that can be shortened a bit is Dallara. I believe, as I wrote, and I think you wrote, and others might have written, Graham, Dallara was a big factor in Wayne Taylor Racing's holy cow dominant 2017 DPI championship.